Krishna has been doing everything she can to chase down whoever was behind the golem mess, but Krishna didn't get much. All Krishna has managed to get is a name, which is Conductor. Krishna tried following the trail back to where Aston first met him, but by the time Krishna arrived the place was cleaned out as if nothing had ever happened. Zofia also tried asking around the underground guilds, and from what she gathered the Conductor had only recently started making appearances there. Besides, nobody knows who he is, so interrogating the locals won't get them anywhere. Krishna says she is classifying the Conductor as a high-priority threat, but judging by how carefully he covered his tracks, she doubts the Conductor will be showing his face again anytime soon. But Zofia isn't buying it because people like him don't just vanish unless they have a massive plan behind the scenes. If that is true, they had better be prepared for whatever the Conductor plans to do next. Krishna tells her to quit speculating since they don't have solid evidence the Conductor will come back. But Zofia replies right back, pointing out that Krishna was doing the same thing a minute ago. Zenas sighs and tells them both to calm down before they start another argument, then asks Krishna why she is sitting way over at the opposite end of the room from everyone else. Krishna says that while she appreciates Zofia's help during the golem incident, Krishna can't be seen casually hanging out with demi-humans like this, not while she is still a royal knight. Zenas can already tell this is about to get worse and he doesn't want that, so Zenas shoves the whole group out the door and tells them not to come back today unless they are injured. Once everyone is gone, Zenas drops into his seat and tries to relax, but then Lily shyly walks over and says she has got an idea. Lily knows Zenas must be tired after fighting the golem and she is just about to suggest going to a hot spring together when suddenly Zofia barges back in, loudly inviting Zenas to join her for a hot spring trip to relax. Zenas figures it might be a nice way to switch things up from his usual schedule, so he agrees and Zofia leaves with joy and Lily is left speechless. Not long after that, Linda shows up. Linda glances around quickly to make sure that no one is here, then leans in and asks Zenas if he wants to go to the hot spring with her. Zenas is ready to go with the hot spring idea, but he can't really say yes because Zofia already asked him first. But before Zenas can explain, Linda just smiles and says she will catch him there, then heads out. Moments after that, Loie arrives and Zenas doesn't even need her to speak because he already knows exactly what she is about to say. Sure enough, Loie came to ask him to go to the hot spring too. When Zenas reacts as if he saw it coming, Loie takes it as confirmation and cheerfully says she will see him there. Then a little while after that, the same thing happens with Krishna. By this point, Zenas is seriously starting to wonder what is going on and why everyone is obsessed with the hot spring. That's when Zenas remembers Lily was about to ask something earlier before the others barged in, but now Lily just stands there quietly, clearly embarrassed, and Zenas doesn't push it. Lily doesn't say a word, but obviously she was going to invite him too. Meanwhile, Carmilla heard everything from the other room. Carmilla starts laughing watching Lily lose her chance after working up all that courage. Zenas of course has no clue what Carmilla is laughing about. Still, Carmilla figures things are bound to get fun over at the hot spring and she is not about to miss out. It's been a long time since Carmilla got to relax, so she announces she is coming too. Sometime later, Zenas is finally chilling in the bath when Zofia gets in. Zenas immediately tells her she is in the wrong bath and this is the men's side, but Zofia waves him off and says it's fine. Zofia hung a fake sign outside so they shouldn't be interrupted. Zofia came in ready to seduce him, but instead of going aggressively, Zofia decides to be gentle and starts a conversation while they sit in the water. Zofia mentions how people have been saying she's different ever since she met Zenas, and he admits it's true that she's way less hostile than she used to be. Still, that doesn't change the fact that Zofia is way too close right now. Zofia was hoping to catch him off guard and slide right into his arms, but Zenas notices, so she gets impatient and tries hard to weigh in. Just then Linda barges in and calls her out for crossing the line, accusing her of sneaking in just to get alone time with Zenas. But in real, Linda is here for the same thing. Linda fakes being fainting and starts stumbling towards Zenas like she is about to pass out right into his arms. But Zofia isn't having it and grabs Linda mid-fall, and the two immediately start fighting like a jealous cat. Right in the middle of that chaos, Loie suddenly rises out of the water and says if they haven't forgotten about her. Zenas stares at Loie and asks what she is doing here. Loie casually replies that she has been lurking under the water this whole time, just waiting for the perfect chance to be alone with him. Loie wants to give Zenas a chance to see her figure, and asks him straight up what he thinks. Zenas says that the light behind her makes it impossible to see much. Not that it matters because the entire situation is insane. Zenas just sits there silently praying that they will burn off all their energy fighting and leave him in peace. But then of course Krishna storms in next, furious and yelling at everyone for coming to the men's bath. The others immediately reply, pointing out that Krishna has no room to talk when she clearly showed up for the same reason. Krishna insists that is not the point, but now all four of them are arguing and fighting over Zenus and his patience is maxed out. Zenus finally snaps and shouts for all of them to get lost and head back to the women's bath. It's so loud that Yuman hears him from the other side. Yuman is soaking in the women's bath and can't believe how bold some girls are sneaking into the men's bath like that, but all she can do is hope their fight doesn't mess up her vacation. A minute later the girls come back into the women's bath all bummed out that Zenus turned them down. But surprisingly they're not mad at each other. They actually seem to be bonding. Yuman is genuinely taken aback because it's not every day you see a human, a werewolf, an ogre, and a lizard girl all chilling together like old friends. Later that evening, after everyone had their baths, they all headed out to enjoy a big meal together. Krishna is still trying to act like she is not part of this mess, pretending Krishna is not friends with anyone, but even she can't resist sneaking glances at the fun and laughing under her breath. Not long after, Zenus puts Lily to bed for the night and steps out onto the balcony, where Carmilla is waiting. Carmilla asks if he is finally enjoying the trip and Zenus admits the dinner was nice. Well, it was nice until others started fighting over who got to sit in his lap. Carmilla laughs up and tells Zenus to savor the calm while he can because things will soon get chaotic. Zenus tells her to quit jinxing him. But Carmilla just says that a wraith's intuition rarely misses. That reminds Zenus that he is pretty sure wraiths can't go out in the sun for long. So how did Carmilla even get here? Carmilla smirks and points at a staff resting against the wall. Apparently Carmilla just possessed the staff and asked Lily to bring it along. Wraiths can only inhabit items they were connected to in life, so Zenus naturally asks what she was doing before she died. However, Carmilla still prefers not to discuss her past. Carmilla changes the subject, picks up a bottle and offers to pour him a drink instead. The next day a loud blast goes off in the kitchen and Yuman immediately rushes over to see what's going on. One of the innkeepers is lying on the ground. Apparently he was cooking breakfast when the magic firestones inside the stove erupted and he took the full hit. His arms are badly injured and burned up pretty badly. Yuman steps in right away saying she is a healer and will do what Yuman can. Yuman manages to stabilize him even though she admits she is nowhere near good enough to fix the damage completely. His arms likely beyond saving and Yuman insists he needs to be taken to the nearest royal hospital as fast as possible, though even then he probably won't regain his full strength. Right then Zenus shows up to check what is going on. Yuman calls out to him asking for a little assistance moving the injured man to the hospital, but from Zenus' perspective, the guy's condition isn't actually that serious. Zenus figures it's not worth going to the hospital, and starts walking away. Before leaving though is a small gesture of thanks for the hospitality during their stay, so Zenus quietly heals the man. Zenus walks off with Lily and from Yuman's point of view, it looks like he completely ignores the man and just goes without helping. Yuman is about to call them out for it, until she glances down and sees the man's injuries are gone. For a split second Yuman wonders if maybe her healing did more than she thought, but no, Yuman knows better. Her skill level isn't anywhere near high enough to pull something like that off. Only top-tier magic users like saints or legendary healers can perform that kind of miracle, and that's why clicks. Zenus has to be an elite-level healer. Yuman immediately heads back to report this to her superior, and Becker is amazed to hear that there is a healer of that caliber just wandering around unnoticed. If what Yuman says is true, the kingdom would definitely want someone like that working for them. However, tracking him down will be tricky since Yuman barely remembers any details except that he had black hair. Becker shrugs it off at first because if Zenus healed someone without asking for a single coin, then he is probably a good guy, so there is no need to worry too much about him. Until Yuman casually mentions that Zenus was also wearing a black overcoat, so that changes everything. Becker suddenly reconsiders and decides it is worth trying to find this guy after all. Yuman agreed with the idea but asked how Becker plans to do it, so he takes a moment to think it through. If Zenus has no official license, that must mean he is unregistered and probably working somewhere deep within the slums, which works just fine because Becker already has the perfect plan to find him out. Later that afternoon, Zahn barges into Zenus' clinic dragging a half-conscious Becker behind him and frantically asks for help. Zahn doesn't know who this guy is, but he suddenly started coughing up blood and collapsed, so Zahn brought him straight here. Zenus quickly warns everyone to keep their distance just in case it is contagious and begins a quick diagnostic scan. What Zenus sees isn't good because the man's lungs are wrecked, and it reminds Zenus of the symptoms seen in red lung disease, so he tells Lily to back off just to be safe. That disease wiped out tons of people back in the day and it spread fast. However, it was supposed to be extinct after the cure was created, so Zenus has no idea how this individual caught it. Suddenly, Becker sits up completely fine and compliments Zenus on how fast he found the diagnosis. Becker introduces himself as a senior healer from the Royal Hospital, although Becker admits he is not exactly known for his healing magic skills. Right then, Yuman rushes into the room in panic and starts scolding Becker for doing something as reckless as faking a deadly illness just to meet Zenas. But Becker insists he had no other option if Becker wanted to see him face to face, and besides, the fake illness is starting to become seriously painful. Becker pulls out a vial from his coat and drinks the contents, explaining that it is an antidote. Becker had taken a drug earlier that mimicked the symptoms of red lung, knowing it would prompt the locals to bring him straight to Zenas' store, but it is fine now because he has already neutralized the effects. Zenas asks why Becker even has something like that, so Becker says he made it years ago when Becker was experimenting with red lung disease during the cure. Hearing this, Zenas immediately realizes that the person he is talking to is the doctor responsible for developing the red lung cure, the same one who earned the elite healer title for saving thousands. Becker explains the real reason he wanted to find Zenas was because of the way he was described, especially the black coat, which reminded him of someone Becker once knew. Becker asks where Zenas got it, and Zenas tells him it belonged to his teacher, though he doesn't know where his teacher is now. Then Becker says he is here to offer Zenas a job at the Royal Hospital. A tricky situation is developing and Becker could really use someone with Zenas' level of expertise, but then the girls show up, clearly having heard that some people were bothering him, and they are ready to fight if needed. Becker calmly reassures them that he didn't come here to force Zenas off against his will. Becker just wants to extend an offer, and Zenas seems fine with the idea. Zofia gives him a look and asks if Zenas is really going through with it, so Zenas says it is the right choice. Now that the Royal Hospital is aware of his underground clinic, it is better to have someone like Becker on his side. Also, when red lung was still spreading, Becker personally made sure to deliver free doses of the cure to the slums, and that act made him a good person, so Zenas sees him as someone worth trusting. Then Zenas heads over to the Royal Hospital alongside Becker and Yuman, and he is genuinely stunned by the size of the place. They eventually arrive at Becker's office, and once Zenas is settled, Becker begins laying out the terms of the job he has in mind for him. There has been a string of disappearances lately, and he wants Zenas to investigate the matter. Zenas doesn't have a problem taking the job, but he points out that reconnaissance isn't really his strong suit, so Zenas asks Becker if he is sure he wants someone like him handling this kind of work. Becker explains that as a special student of the Royal Hospital, Zenas will have access to several specialized programs, so gathering intel should be relatively easy. Still, Zenas is worried that someone might eventually uncover his identity if he attracts too much attention. Becker tells him not to worry about it because he has already built a backstory for Zenas. From now on, if anyone asks, Zenas has just returned from studying abroad. Zenas isn't convinced it will be fine, especially with other skilled healers. But Becker says as long as he is vouching for him, no one will dig any deeper. After that, Yuman escorts Zenas to the hospital dorms, where he will be staying for the next few weeks, and to his surprise, Zenas finds Lily already waiting for him. Zenas immediately asks what Lily is doing here, and Yuman explains that Becker signed off on the paperwork to let Lily move in. According to hospital policy, healers are allowed to live with family members or spouses, so Lily teases that this makes her Zenas' wife. But in truth, Yuman just listed her as Zenas' younger sister. Yuman is the one who pushed for Lily to come here in the first place, as she figured Zenas would be more comfortable having someone familiar nearby. Honestly, Zenas was nervous about leaving Lily behind, so he thanks Yuman. Then Yuman steps out to give Zenas time to settle in, but right after Yuman leaves, Carmela also appears. Zenas understands why Lily is here, but Zenas can't figure out why Carmela would come to the capital. Not that Carmela has much reason to enjoy messing with Zenas, since crazy things happen whenever he is around. Zenas points out that with all the healers in this building, she is risking exposure if anyone spots her. But Carmela doesn't seem even a little concerned, because aside from Zenas, there really aren't many healers here powerful enough to exorcise her anyway. A little later, Zenas is sitting in the cafeteria with Yuman, and she asks how he is settling into the new place so far. Zenas says it's not too bad, but things are about to get hectic, and he still has no idea how to obtain an official healing license. Yuman says she can explain the process to him since she knows how it works. First, you must pass a healer aptitude test. If you do, you will get accepted into the Royal Healing Academy. From there, it's years of studying. Then you can take the final exam to earn your healer license. That sounds like a nightmare, so Zenas can't believe there are people actually willing to go through all that. But Yuman says that is just the beginning. Once you're licensed, you'll need to take another round of exams to become an adventurer or to work under military contracts. There are even more requirements to move up through the healer ranks. Most people in this facility are here to conduct research or enhance their academic standing, but it all seems overwhelming to Zenas. Then Zenas asks her about the missing people. Ewan explains that one of the people who vanished was named Fred, and he was an advanced healer and a researcher. The man was known for being gentle and brilliant in medicine, and even Becker told her that Fred played a significant role in developing the cure for the red lung disease. Zenas thinks Fred sounds like someone worth saving, but he still doesn't know much about the situation, so Zenas asks if there are any leads. Right then the cafeteria doors swing open and Goldran walks in. Zenas asks who that guy is, and Ewan tells him that he is the vice director of the Royal Hospital, also a Class 7 advanced healer. Zenas has no idea what Class 7 means, so Ewan explains it. Healers are ranked in 3 tiers: beginner, advanced, and elite, and each tier has 7 levels, so the 7 advanced healer is the highest point you can reach before getting elite status. So Goldran is a big deal around here and apparently aims to become the hospital's next director. The current director is barely around due to his old age, so Goldran runs the place now. However, under his leadership things have shifted significantly, but not necessarily for the better. According to Ewan, the wealthy get special treatment whenever they fall ill, while the poor do not get proper care and treatment. Goldran no longer bothers to improve his healing abilities, and the word is that he bought his way up to level 7. Zenas has a pretty solid grasp of what kind of guy Goldran is, and honestly, he prefers to stay far away from him. But dodging him isn't really an option, since Ewan believes Goldran might be involved in Fred's disappearance. Goldran is known for pulling in every skilled healer he can find to boost his image, and Fred was one of those standout talents. Zenas asks if Goldran has ever made a public statement about Fred vanishing, but apparently he denied having anything to do with it. Zenas understands what needs to be done, but the question is, how is he supposed to get close to him? Ewan says not to worry about it. If Zenas showcases his incredible healing skills during one of the hospital's programs, then Goldran is bound to notice him sooner or later. Zenas knows he is good, but Zenas has never actually gone head-to-head with other healers before, so he has no idea how he will do it. However, Zenas is willing to give it a try. Right then one of Ewan's colleagues called Cress comes over and asks why she is sitting out in the corner. Ewan tells him she is allowed to eat wherever she wants, but Cress says take it easy, he is just teasing him. Then Cress notices Zenas and realizes he is the guy backed by an elite healer, which makes him jealous. But Cress is just telling Zenas not to embarrass his sponsor and walking off. Zenas turns to Ewan asking what that was about. Ewan explains that Cress is a classmate of hers and used to be decent, but ever since Goldran scouted him, his ego has been out of control. Then Zenas thinks back to his early days. Back when Zenas was still a child, he found a corpse in an alley and began practicing his magic on it, hoping to revive it. But just as Zenas was about to raise the dead, his teacher smacked him across the head. The man told him not to waste his talent on corpses and to learn how to help the living instead, and that was the day his life shifted. The man took Zenas in and started teaching him healing magic alongside another student named Veritra. In just 1 year, both of them had become skilled enough to treat serious wounds. But even then, their teacher warned them that healing a few cuts and bruises is just beginner level work. You're still a third-rate healer until you learn what healing really means. Back in the present, Zenas is sitting on his very first lecture at the academy, and the topic for the day just so happens to be undead creatures. As the professor dives into the lesson, Zenas is impressed. Not because he is learning anything new, since Zenas picked up all this knowledge back during his adventuring days. However, the way the material is presented makes it easy even for someone without field experience to follow. Then the professor asks if anyone has any questions, and one of the students raises a hand to ask about wraiths. Unfortunately, the professor doesn't have much to offer on the topic. All he really says is that wraiths sit at the top of the undead hierarchy. Encounters with them are rare, and in most cases, the entire adventurer party gets wiped out. His advice is to run, especially if the wraith is capable of speech. That level of intellect usually means you're dealing with something terrifyingly strong. Zenas is somewhat shocked by that, considering he literally has a talking wraith living at home with Lily. Zenas never realized Carmela was that dangerous, but was not about to say anything and cause a panic. Then the professor asks if anyone has actually faced the undead before. The first to jump up, of course, is Cress. Cress introduces himself with arrogance and brags about how he used to be an adventurer and has taken out about 30 ghosts. That gets the class excited, so they all start clapping and hyping him up, which just feeds his ego. Then Cress notices Zenas isn't clapping and decides to target him, asking how many ghosts he has exorcised. Zenas could easily take on 50 in one go if he really pushed himself, but Zenas doesn't want to draw attention, so he casually says he has handled 30 before. Cress can hardly believe it, but Zenas holds his ground, clarifying that he has fought 30 ghosts at once. and the room goes dead silent. The others are in shock trying to process what Zenas just said. The professor asks him how that is even possible, so Zenas explains that he once wandered into a labyrinth and got swarmed, so Zenas just used healing spells until everything was wiped out. That is when the class realizes Zenas is talking about the Garmenton Labyrinth, a place so dangerous that even gold class adventurers usually avoid it, so the room goes amok. Everyone is seriously impressed except for Cress, who sulks in disbelief, still convinced that Zenas is lying because there is no way he could have been upstaged like that. The focus of the next lecture is on magic circles, and Cress deliberately picks the seat right next to Zenas, determined to prove he is better. Zenas never really cared much for magic circles and always thought they were pointless, but he still had to sit through the class. The professor draws one on the board and then asks if anyone wants to volunteer and recreate it in front of everyone. Cress raises his hand and walks confidently to the front, clearly trying to show off. Cress draws a perfect magic circle for a healing spell, and the professor praises his precision. Then Cress grins and tells the professor that Zenas would also like to give it a try. Zenas never planned to participate, but now he has been dragged into it. Like Zenas said before, magic circles were never something he paid much attention to. But Zenas does remember one weird circle his master showed him years ago, so Zenas walks up and draws it. Cress starts laughing because the circle looks nothing like the textbooks. But when the professor sees it, he stops cold, completely stunned. What Zenas drew isn't just basic healing, it resembles a regeneration circle, but it's different. Zenas confirms that it is a regeneration circle, but it's unusual. If someone is missing several fingers, this spell will randomly grow one back. It is overly complex and burns a lot of mana, way more than most healers could ever handle. However, Zenas activates it with ease, even admitting it is useless to him since he can regrow fingers faster with his own methods. The professor quickly realizes that Zenas isn't just talented, he is on another level. The professor immediately invites him to join his research group, but Zenas respectfully declines. Meanwhile, Cress is sitting there seething from all the attention Zenas has just stolen from him. Later that same day, a word about this gifted student reaches Goldran. Supposedly he is strong enough to wipe out 30 ghosts in one go, but Goldran doesn't have time for rumors. Then another staff member rushes in with news that several undead have been spotted around the cemetery. That gives Goldran an idea. Goldran will send Zenas to deal with it. If Zenas is that good, maybe Goldran will consider bringing him in. That night, Zenas is sent out with a squad of students on an exorcism mission, including Cress. Cress takes charge, leading the others in, but they end up surrounded quickly and Cress starts to lose it. Just as things are about to go sideways, Zenas casts a powerful healing spell and wipes out every ghost in an instant. Zenas tells everyone they did a solid job dragging the ghosts out so he could finish them off. But before Zenas even wraps up his sentence, Cress cuts in and claims credit for the powerful heal spell. The rest of the students are clueless about what really happened, so they believe him when Cress says he is the one who saved the day. Cress even tells them to brag to their professors about how amazing he is. Then Cress strolls over to Zenas and says he will never acknowledge his skills. Zenas honestly couldn't care less about Cress's desperate need for attention, but if Cress really wants to be the hero, he shouldn't leave just yet, because the real threat hasn't even shown up. Cress has no idea what Zenas is talking about, but a few seconds later, the ground tears open and a massive zombie king climbs out. The students are in disbelief that something this dangerous actually appeared, but they're still not too worried. After all, they figure Cress will handle it, and he is going to do it alone because there is no way any of them are going near that zombie king. Human and Zenas could step in, but they would rather not take Cress's spotlight. So they decide just to sit back and see how things go. Cress tries blasting the zombie king with his strongest heal, but it barely makes a dent. There is no way Cress can win this fight, but his pride won't let him back down, so he just keeps running in circles trying not to get flattened. While all this chaos is happening, Human tells Zenas that powerful undead tend to draw in weaker ones. So chances are the ghosts from earlier were just following the zombie king's lead. But Zenas feels like there is something more going on here. Cress is getting smacked around pretty hard now, and Zenas thinks it's time to jump in. But Human stops him for a moment. She still cares about Cress, but Human wants him to learn a hard lesson first. Cress has been holding his own by using heal spells every time he slams into a wall, but eventually the zombie king catches him, and just when it's about to eat him, Zenas steps in. Zenas gets ready to use one of his best spells, and when it is charged, he fires off Mega Heal. A blinding light floods the battlefield, and a surge of pure healing energy scorches the decaying monster down to nothing. Now that the zombie king is reduced to dust, the job is finally done. But Human's earlier comment about undead being drawn to stronger undead starts eating at Zenas, and it doesn't take long before he figures out that Carmilla is the real reason those ghosts and the zombie king showed up here in the first place. A while later, Zenas gets back home and asks Carmilla if she has any clue about the recent increase in undead activity nearby. but turns out Carmilla had no clue she was attracting those kinds of monsters. Then Carmilla looks at him nervously and asks if Zenas is planning to kick her out because of it, but Zenas stops to think. Considering the way Carmilla affects the area around her, it would actually be safer to keep her close. Carmilla's face goes bright red at the thought because no one has ever said they wanted her around in her entire life. So Carmilla promises to stick by Zenas' side from now on, but Carmilla makes it very clear she is still going to mess with him whenever Carmilla gets the chance. The following day, Cress met with his supervisor, who was eager to hear how Cress handled the recent extermination. Word is Cress took out all those monsters with one massive spell, but Cress knows that wasn't him and Zenas who did everything. The supervisor even says that since Zenas didn't stand out, it means the rumors must be exaggerated, so he won't be getting into Goldrin's group after all. Cress could have kept quiet and walked away with all the glory, but the guilt is eating him alive, so he finally speaks up and tells the truth. Zenas was the one who took out the undead and the zombie king. Cress saw it with his own eyes. After that, Cress leaves the office feeling embarrassed because his reputation might decline for admitting he lied. But Zenas saved him, and now that Cress has come clean, so he is confident Zenas will get into the research lab. So as far as Cress is concerned, that makes them even. Later on, Becker comes by with a smile and tells Zenas that Goldrin's research team has officially reached out, and they want to meet with him. Zenas was glad to hear it, but he was also a little shocked since Zenas figured Cress would have taken credit for everything. Still, it means Zenas has cleared the first hurdle in getting close to Goldran, which is a big step. Becker tells him not to celebrate yet because there is still an interview with a professor, which will be a whole other challenge. Zenas doesn't understand why there are so many hurdles to joining a research faction, but Becker explains that Goldran has a lot of influence and is selective about who they bring in. Then Zenas asks why Goldran has that much power to begin with. If Goldran was just another advanced healer, shouldn't someone like Becker, whose rank is even higher, be the one with more power? Becker laughs and says titles don't always mean much when it comes to real power, especially in his case, since he earned his rank from breakthroughs in drug research, not political strength. Zenas doesn't really get the political side of things, but Zenas says he is heading out to answer Goldran's summons, and the others wish him luck. Zenas finally shows up in the meeting room, and after Goldran gives a quick intro, the very first thing he asks is what Zenas can do. Zenas just replies that he is a healer, so Zenas heals people, but Goldran is not impressed. Goldran says that answer is too basic and any average healer can heal people, but someone like Zenas should be aiming way higher. Goldran points out that healers carry serious weight in this country, and the whole nation probably wouldn't exist without them. Still, it's the elites who benefit the most from all that work. That's exactly why Goldran's goal is to break into the upper ranks, not because he wants to make the world better, but because Goldran wants to profit from this. Goldran believes that a person's worth is tied to their usefulness. Goldran is not interested in wasting time on people who offer nothing. Once Goldran is done, he tells Zenas to recreate the same magic circle that Zenas showed off in class so Goldran can evaluate it properly. Zenas has no idea how this helps, but he goes along with it anyway. When Goldran examines the circle, he stands up and says that starting from tomorrow, Zenas is officially part of his lab. The next morning, Zenas is walking through the halls when Goldran's research group marches past him in a line. Zenas spots Cress at the back, and Cress waves him over, telling him to hurry up and join the line. With a grin, Cress welcomes him to the group, but reminds him that since he got in first, Zenas better show some respect to his seniors. After all, the only reason Zenas made it in is that Cress put in a good word. Zenas asks why Cress even bothered telling the truth back then, since keeping quiet would have protected his respect. Cress admits it was partly guilt, but also because he figured writing Zenas' wave might work out in his favor. Zenas respects the honesty at least, but right now he is wondering what's up with this weird line. Cress explains that it's part of Goldran's usual routine, his daily patient rounds. Zenas asks if they really need a whole squad just to check on one person, but it's more about appearances. Goldran only visits VIPs with influence, so showing up with a crowd makes his statement. Zenas didn't join for this though, because he is only here to dig into Goldran's secrets, and Zenas can't do that from the back of the pack, so without saying a word, he starts heading straight for the front. The patient tells Goldran that his foot has been killing him, so Goldran takes a quick look and sees it's just a sprain. Goldran says he will only need 3 assistants for this one. Zenas doesn't know what that means at first, but then watches Goldran cast a spell and pull energy from 3 of the students standing nearby. Goldran fumbles that energy into the man's foot to heal it. While it works, the students involved in the process are clearly affected. Zenas quickly heads back to Cress and asks what kind of spell Goldran just used. Cress explains that Goldran's speciality is a type of magic called health transfer. It lets you shift life force from one person into another, which makes it possible to heal big injuries even if the caster isn't that strong. If someone is hurt, you can essentially donate vitality from others to speed up their recovery. For more severe wounds, the spell requires a significant amount of life energy, so it is usually spread among multiple people. The usual downside is just a bit of fatigue. Zenas finds that pretty fascinating, and it definitely explains why Goldrand surrounds himself with so many healers. But Cress tells him that is not all word going around that Director Shalbert might be stepping down soon, and Goldrand is already trying to secure votes for the next leadership election. Zenas thanks him for the information, and while they are talking, Zenas decides to ask if Cress has ever heard of a guy named Afred. Cress nods and says he knows the guy, but Cress never really liked him. Afred got invited to one of Goldrand's fancy dinner parties and then just vanished. Zenas asks what kind of party that even is, and Cress says Goldrand throws these exclusive dinners for his top-tier subordinates, and it is a big deal to get invited. But after that night, no one has seen or heard from Afred again. Later, Zenas tells Becker everything, thinking this might be enough. But Becker tells him they are not even close. What they have confirms Goldrand was probably tied to Afred's disappearance, but it is nowhere near enough to prove it. Becker needs Zenas to climb higher, earn Goldrand's trust, and get invited to one of those dinner parties. If Zenas can pull it off, Becker even promises to pay him more. Zenas agrees to keep digging, even though he was hoping to head home on one condition. Once this entire matter is resolved, Becker must disclose everything he knows about Zenas' former master, regardless of the outcome. At the same time, over in the slums, Linda is busy messing with the lock on Zenas' clinic door. After a bit of effort, Linda finally gets it open. Linda came by to clean the place up for him while Zenas was away, but Linda ends up sniffing a few of Zenas' belongings while she is here. Just as Linda is starting to look around, she picks up on someone else's presence, so Linda gets ready to fight, but it turns out to be Zofia. They both demand to know what the other is doing here, but Linda quickly catches sight of the mop Zofia is holding, so clearly they had the same plan in mind. A few minutes later, Loey busts down the door and also shows up there with cleaning on her mind. Zofia and Linda figured Loey would come eventually, though they wish she hadn't had to destroy the door in the process, as it was now more work for them. The following morning in the capital, Zenas catches up with Cress, who tells him he has just scored the huge honor of taking care of Goldrand's precious dog. But Cress is just dumping his pet care job onto Zenas, and Zenas can't help but question if Cress is actually doing any real research at all. Cress explains that Goldrand is busy holding a private meeting with the 7 top noble houses he has been buttering up, which is why they are stuck watching his dog. Cress doesn't really mind because he figures this is all just part of working his way into Goldrand's inner circle. Zenas asks if Cress is seriously going for a promotion, and Cress says that's the whole point. Once Cress climbs high enough, he will be living the high life with all the luxuries that come with it. Zenas thought that most healers entered the field because they genuinely wanted to help people. But Cress tells him things don't work like that. Cress admits that there was a time when he dreamed of curing the sick and saving lives, but his healing magic has limits and it can't fix everything. Since Cress can't save everyone, he would use his skills to secure money and power for himself. Just then a guy named Bonds strolls over and asks Cress if he is stuck on dog duty for Goldrand again. Cress brushes it off, saying he is just doing what Cress has to do, but Bonds doesn't buy it. Bonds tells him it's going to take way more than this to impress Goldrand if Cress actually wants to move up in life. After that, Bonds walks off and Zenas turns to ask who he was. Cress says Bonds is Goldrand's first secretary, but Zenas finds it hard to believe someone like that could even hold a position. Cress can't believe it, but says apparently Bonds got this position thanks to being an old friend of Goldrand, so now he just coasted by without doing much of anything. Just then Bonds suddenly yells out Cress's name and throws a bottle straight at him. Lucky for Cress, Bonds is too drunk to hit him, and the bottle completely misses him, but it crashes right next to Goldrand's dog and scares her so badly that she runs. Cress panics because if he loses the dog, Cress might as well start digging his own grave. After all, Goldrand would absolutely murder him. Cress dashes after her, but the moment the dog rushes into the road, a carriage comes by and she gets hit. Cress rushes over and immediately tries to heal her. Cress uses a high-tier healing spell on her injuries, but even after all that, the dog is still badly injured. Zenas checks her out and tells him not to panic because he's stopped the bleeding so she will live, but Cress is losing it because that is not enough. Even if she survives, she is going to have scars, and the only reason Goldrand loves this dog is because of how perfectly fluffy and flawless she is. So if Goldrand sees her like this, Cress is finished. Zenas doesn't want the guy to get screwed over, so he raises his hand and starts working his healing magic on dog. Cress tries to stop him, saying it's a waste of time. Although Zenas possesses immense power, as evidenced by his ability to wipe out a zombie king, however this kind of healing requires serious skill, and regenerating skin without leaving a mark is something only top-level healers can accomplish. But while Cress is busy speaking, Zenas has already finished. The dog is now completely healed with no scars. Even her ribs are as good as new. She is basically perfect again, like nothing ever happened. Zenas just tells Cress that she should still take the rest of the day off. A while later, Zenas heads back home and finds Yuman already there waiting for him. Zenas asks if something is up, and Yuman says she just wanted to see if he would take a walk with her. Zenas didn't expect that, but he agrees, and once they are out in the woods, Zenas asks if there is something on her mind. Yuman turns toward him and says she wants to apologize because if Yuman wasn't so useless, maybe she could have caught Goldrin's eye, and then Zenas wouldn't be stuck in this mess. Zenas tells Yuman that she doesn't owe him an apology since Becker has already compensated him. Honestly, if it weren't for this opportunity, he wouldn't have even gotten through the gates of the Royal Hospital, let alone gotten a chance to know his master's past. There is a lot for him to gain, so Zenas makes it clear she shouldn't blame herself for any of this. Yuman is relieved to hear that, but since Zenas brought it up, she doesn't know much about this master he always talks about. So Yuman asks what kind of guy he was. Zenas says he is not entirely sure because his master was somewhat suspicious. However, the man did teach him to read and write and shared a wealth of knowledge about magic in the world, so Zenas owes the man everything. Yuman says that sounds a lot like her and Becker because when she first started as a healer, he took her under his wing and passed down all kinds of research knowledge. Also, Becker's obsession with his work got so out of hand that his girlfriend ended up leaving him, and ever since, Yuman has been the one looking after him. So Zenas asks what her relationship with Becker actually is, and Yuman tells him Becker is her uncle, which explains why they are so close. Not long after, Zenas and Yuman are heading back toward the Royal Hospital campus when Cress suddenly bolts over to them. Cress drops to his knees, practically pleading with Zenas for help, and judging from the look on Cress's face, whatever he has gotten himself into isn't just minor, it's serious. So now what will happen next? Subscribe to our channel to find out what will happen next. Friends, before we wrap up, we've recently launched a membership program where you can enjoy perks like early access to videos and exclusive content just for members, and many more to enhance your interactions. If you're interested, consider joining our membership. To enjoy these benefits, check out the link in the description to join. So friends, if you enjoyed our recap video, please like and share it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.